So this weekend, the Democrats passed a horrible stimulus bill through the Senate. Um, and honestly, I'm very discouraged and disappointed in the way that some people on the left new media, left journalists are covering this stimulus bill. And I'll get into that right now. So, of course, the corporate media are working overtime to do propaganda and try to act like this was some grand plan and it is going to save the country, save the economy. Washington Post posted a article this weekend that was just fucking comical. I think they titled it was something like Biden showers the public with cash in the stimulus bill. And it's just completely over the top and clearly just pro-Biden propaganda. Even though Biden is objectively giving, sending stimulus checks to 17 million less people than Trump did, they're still acting like, they literally pretended like he's, quote, showering the country with cash. But aside from the predictable corporate media propaganda for the Democrats, there have been people on the left who've been critical of the stimulus bill, but now that it passed, they take their typical stance that, hey, it's better than nothing, right? So I guess we should just be grateful for what we got. And they did some good things in the stimulus bill, so I guess we can call it a good stimulus bill. And I think that is way off the mark. My standard, the way I'm judging this stimulus bill, the way I judge the previous stimulus bill, the way that I judge the CARES Act, it's not whether or not it does something good for people. Of course, it's going to do something good for some people. But the way I judge it, the way I will determine whether or not it's a good stimulus bill is if it meets the moment, the scale of the crisis that we're in, the economic crisis and the pandemic, if it is adequate to addressing the problems or comes anywhere near addressing the real problems, the root problems, the systemic problems that are in our economy that is in shambles right now, then I'll call it a good stimulus bill. That's not what this is, nowhere close. And the problem with setting that low bar of, oh, it's better than nothing, and oh, they did some good things in this, so I'll call it a good stimulus bill. When you do that, you're buying into the ideological framework behind all of this. Because plain and simple, this bill, as yes, it does some good things. I'll admit that, and I'll get into a little bit the details a little bit after this. Yes, it does some good things, but in general, this bill is neoliberalism and austerity economics personified in a time when we need the government to be doing the exact opposite, to not be penny pinching and to not be fear-mongering about the debt and the deficit. We need them to be spending unlimited amounts of money to actually address the economic crisis. That's what this moment calls for. It doesn't call for austerity economics. It calls for MMT economic theory. It calls for large, unprecedented in this country, unprecedented universal economic programs like single payer, like UBI, monthly recurring checks, universal checks to everyone in the country, like a blanket rent, debt, and mortgage cancellation. This moment calls for universal programs like that because when you agree to the means testing, when you agree to the austerity and we're not going to spend, even though the moment calls for us to spend this amount, we're not going to spend more than this because the debt deficit, something like that. When you agree to that framework, and it's funny because the same people on the left who are acting like this is a good stimulus bill, they're the ones who go around and usually say that poverty is a policy choice. Well, when you agree to a stimulus bill like this that has austerity baked into the framework of it, then guess what the policy choice you're making? The policy choice you're making is we're going to help some people who qualify, And even though we know that there are other people who don't qualify, we aren't going to do anything for them. So what did you do? The choice you made there was poverty. And it's poverty for millions and millions of people during the worst economic crisis in history and a pandemic. So again, the low bar of, oh, it has some good things, so it must be good is completely off the mark. Does it meet the moment? No. Does the ideological framework of this thing, does that meet the moment? No, it doesn't. And then another important factor to weigh in when you're judging whether or not this is a good stimulus bill is what long-term effects does this have on the economy? Because up to this moment, all these stimulus bills have been woefully short and inadequate, like bandage, like a little band-aid on a gunshot wound. We're talking about permanent economic devastation in this country. We're talking about seismic economic event that we experienced in 2020 that completely changed the trajectory of the economy for the bottom 80% of the country, bottom 70% of the country. And it's never going to just go back to the way that it was. So in these stimulus bills, these economic relief bills, not only do you need to provide emergency relief, you need to address the systemic inequalities in the economy, or else it's just going to keep getting worse. 60% of small businesses that closed because of COVID closed permanently. Over 60 million people have lost their jobs. 40 million people are going to be evicted. Unless you have something to deal with those long-term economic catastrophes that are a reality now, then this is a shitty stimulus bill. Now let me get into some of the details of what's in this bill, what some people on the left are justifying some praise or some credit being given to Joe Biden and the Democrats. So there's a $3,000 child tax credit in the stimulus bill. So if you have a child in this country, you get or if you have children, you get $3,000 in tax credit per child in the stimulus bill. Again, is this a good thing? Yes. Objectively, it is a good thing to give people money, to give families money in the middle of an economic crisis. Yes, of course, that is a good thing. But again, this is unnecessary means testing, gratuitous means testing. Because, so what are you saying now? The only people in the country who need money, who would need this type of cash assistance, this type of cash boost, are people with children. Again, we're in the worst economic crisis in history. Tens of millions of people are unemployed, permanently unemployed. Millions of them don't qualify for unemployment insurance. Millions of them don't qualify for the stimulus checks. So when you do things like this child tax credit, which is means testing, by definition, this is means testing because the only people who this money is available for is people who qualify or meet certain criteria. So when you do this means testing, you're saying, oh yeah, the people who have kids, you get money, but the people who don't get kids, for absolutely no objective reason, you don't get money. That makes absolutely no sense. And then on top of that, okay, it's yes, $3,000 per child is a great thing. But what the moment actually calls for, I've been talking about relentlessly, is UBI. So if we're being honest, people should be getting $3,000 a month per child every month since this crisis started. So for you to offer up this $3,000 child tax credit as if it's one time $3,000 tax credit that's supposed to last for the entire year, to offer that up as if it's some huge get, I mean, that's weak sauce. And then something else, they extended the unemployment insurance, but of course they limited the unemployment insurance. So when it started in the CARES Act, the unemployment was $600 a week. That was unemployment insurance you were getting from the government, $600 a week. Now, so it was lowered to $400 a week in the last stimulus bill that they passed, I believe. And then now they lowered it again to $300 a week in this stimulus bill. So they keep, again, this is austerity for no other reason than bullshit deficit hawkery. They're saying we're going to give less money to people in the worst economic crisis in history. It's not like, oh, if we give them less money, it's going to do more for them. It's going to help more people. No, it's just bullshit deficit hawkery. Something, national debt, even though it's not even a real thing, and we print money, and we have modern monetary theory, and the Fed can just create money in bank accounts, move decimal points, and create trillions of dollars. Even though we can do all of that, let's fearmonger about the debt and cut $100 from a week from these unemployment insurance programs. So again, yes, of course, it's good that some of the people, the tens of millions of people who qualify for unemployment insurance, yes, it is good that they extended it, but they've cut the amount. And again, it's not, there is no automatic stabilizers in it. It doesn't automatically renew. It's going to expire again at some point, and we're going to have to go through this whole process again, and fingers crossed that Congress can come together and pass another extension of the unemployment insurance, where they might end up trying to cut it again like they've done every single other time they've extended it. So again, good that people got the money. They're doing it in a completely shitty way and gratuitously means testing it and adding more austerity into it for absolutely no reason. And then of course the $1,400 stimulus check. They promised $2,000. Biden was going around talking about vote for Warnock, vote for Ossoff in Georgia, give Democrats the Senate, and then we'll get you $2,000 checks immediately. It wasn't immediately. Damn near 2 months since Biden's been in office now. And now, of course, the amount isn't $2,000. Again, for absolutely no other reason than bullshit deficit hawkery and fear-mongering about the national debt. They refuse to give people the $2,000 a month, and so they cut it to $1,400 for absolutely no reason. That's not going to save the debt of the country. That's not going to keep us from like whatever scary nightmare scenario they're trying to portray as if we rack up too much debt. It's not that cutting $600 checks, $600 in a check isn't going to save any of that. It's not going to do any of that. But they just did it anyway, gratuitously. So again, that's worth criticism. And then they have some money for education and to help states. Yes, the money that they're giving to states is necessary, but of course it's woefully inadequate. We're in the worst economic crisis in history. The many state budgets across the country are completely gutted because millions of people lost their jobs, so they don't get to collect income taxes from people's paychecks. On top of that, because of the pandemic and the decrease in economic activity, there's even less sales tax for these state and local governments to collect. So their budgets for this next year and for the foreseeable future is going to be gutted. So yes, they provided some money to these states, necessary money that they need. But again, is it anywhere near the amount that they need to actually be sustainable? Absolutely not. So that's my thoughts on some of the specific provisions in that stimulus bill. And now to arguably my most controversial take on this stimulus bill and the way that people on the left are talking about this. It's the $15 minimum wage amendment. So Bernie Sanders, I've been through this already. The Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, they're trying to hide behind the Senate parliamentarian. The parliamentarian says you can't put $15 minimum wage in the budget reconciliation bill because it doesn't meet the requirements of budget reconciliation, which is completely made up. It does meet the requirements of budget reconciliation because it does affect the federal budget. But the parliamentarian gave her advice on this, and now Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are acting as if she can't just overrule acting as if Kamala Harris can't just overrule the Senate parliamentarian because she's technically the president of the Senate. So she gets final say on how the rules are interpreted of the Senate. So they're trying to hide behind the parliamentarian and say, oh, we can't put it in there because she says it doesn't meet the requirements of budget reconciliation. And then, as I've reported before, Bernie Sanders said, fuck it, we're going to try to introduce this as an amendment and try to get it into the bill that way. He did it. Then, of course, there was the vote over the weekend where 8 Democrats voted down the $15 minimum wage and killed the $15 minimum wage. And to be clear, if they didn't pass it now, they are never going to pass it in the Biden administration because this was their best chance to do it. So some people on the left, a lot of people on the left, are justifiably outraged by the Democrats killing the $15 minimum wage because they ran on it. And that makes sense. They ran on this shit, and now as soon as they have power, they have control of the House, the Senate, and the White House, and they're passing a bill through budget reconciliation, which would require absolutely no Republican votes. There is no better opportunity to pass $15 minimum wage, and they said we're going to kill it on behalf of corporations and their corporate donors. So people on the left are justifiably outraged about that, but I am very annoyed that this is the hill that so many people on the left decided that they wanted to die on. Bernie Sanders, he said $15 minimum wage, and I'm going to try to put it in there even though Joe Biden doesn't want it in there. Okay, why didn't you do that with other important policies? Why didn't you just write that in the bill to begin with? And why didn't you use your vote, your leverage, to kill the bill if it didn't have UBI in there? Why didn't you do that? Why didn't you put Medicare for all in there? These are all necessary policies. These are all policies to deal with the actual emergency of a pandemic and economic crisis, which is the purpose of the stimulus bill. So why is the hill that Bernie Sanders wants to die on is the $15 minimum wage instead of UBI? Because, and a lot of other people on the left too, you can have, if you can fight for the $15 minimum wage, but why isn't that same amount of pressure being applied to passing UBI, monthly recurring checks? Because if you do UBI, $3,000 a month, $4,000 a month, whatever it is objectively a bigger raise to people who are working. It would objectively be a bigger raise than the $15 minimum wage. And then on top of that, you give the money to people who aren't working, people who do need the money but aren't working a job to get the benefits of a $15 minimum wage increase. And on top of that, the $15 minimum wage increase was incremental over a 5-year period, and it wasn't changed to inflation. So by the time it's $15 an hour, it's still not a living wage. So it's bizarre to me that people on the left were saying, oh, kill the bill unless it has $15 minimum wage in it. My question is, why aren't you saying kill the bill unless it has UBI? Because objectively, that would have it would be more impactful and it would be more useful to deal with the actual emergency that we're in right now. So it was just frustrating to me that this is the hill that people want to die on. Kill the bill unless it has $15 minimum wage. Objectively, an incremental increase in wages over 5 years that will ultimately be inadequate by the time it takes full effect. So the left was literally arguing for neoliberalism. They said, kill this bill unless they put some more neoliberalism in there that slightly makes the situation a little bit better for some people. And again, on top of another thing, that's just, I can't wrap my mind around why the $15 minimum wage is the hill that they want to die on. We're in the worst economic crisis in history. Over 60 million people have lost their job since a year ago. 60 million people plus. And now we're talking about increasing the minimum wage. Okay, that's great. But what about the tens of millions of people who do not have a job, who are out of the workforce? Again, so it's just means testing assistance and help provided to certain people who fit certain qualifications. And then even if you do fit those qualifications, it'll be years until you get the real effect of it. So it's just, I said what I said. I think the fight should be over UBI. I think they should kill the bill unless it has UBI in there, unless it has rent and debt cancellation. And honestly, it should have Medicare for all in there because there's no excuse. Democrats have control of the House, the Senate, and the White House. And the progressives have the opportunity, they have the leverage, they have the numbers to make sure that nothing passes unless their demands are met. So why aren't they making real demands? So that's my thought on the stimulus bill. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section. And I might do a update to this, even though I've been covering it a lot over the last few weeks.